It is the basketball show for the basketball fan. Welcome back to another edition of Open Gym here on 1010XL. And we're looking to figure out who are going to be some young stars under the age of 25 that are going to look to set the league on fire, not only this season, but in seasons to come. ESPN asked this question. Their NBA crew posed it to everyone on their social media channels. And to me, it seems like you have quite a few here that can really be in the running for those stars under 25 looking to set the league ablaze. They include names such as Scotty Barnes, Tyrese Halliburton, as well as Zion Williamson, Alperen Sengun of the Houston Rockets. And, of course, you're going to have those at the top, such as Chet Holmgren, Victor Wembanyama, Paolo Banchero, and Anthony Edwards. My top three favorite to really look out for come this season and in seasons to come, and this is no particular order, but when you look at Anthony Edwards, it seems like the hype is really going to be surrounding him this year. You trade Karl Anthony Towns, and it really seems like the Minnesota Timberwolves really want the offense to be geared around and open up for Anthony Edwards. It's going to be interesting to see what he does this season. We all saw what he was able to do last year, a step away from NBA Finals action for Ant-Man and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Can he do more of the same this year? There was a lot of hype surrounding him in terms of, is this guy the Michael Jordan a la 84 when Jordan first got in the league? Is this a guy that's showing remnants a little bit of even that of a Kobe Bryant or a Dwayne Wade? I do think that this is going to be one of the guys when you are looking for an individual to carry the torch once this era of LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Steph Curry decides to burn its final flame, and you're looking for who's going to be that new face of the league. Anthony Edwards is certainly going to be one of those players that you are going to have to look at and at least give some consideration to, because this guy is a highlight reel unto himself. He can take over games at any point in time in which he wants to. Now he has to be able to contribute to winning on the highest level for the Minnesota Timberwolves, with the ball now being in his hands over 90% of the time this year, in my opinion, because the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to be looking for this guy to get them out of a lot of ball games and win a lot of ball games for them. When you elect to now take out a guy such as Karl Anthony Towns, you trade him to New York. However, you do have Julius Randle there, and he is a guy that is an NBA All-Star. We'll definitely have to see how it works out, that dynamic between Ant and Julius. Also, Dante DiVincenzo in the mix now. That's a great third option to have, and you have a great coach in Coach Finch who's going to be looking to put that all together. But for my money right now, when you look at a 25-year-old who is definitely going to try to make a statement this season, Anthony Edwards is definitely going to be one of those players. Secondly, it really seems like it's obvious, isn't it? Victor Wembanyama, and it seems that it's going to be really scary. We had Kurt Heelan on our program when we first got this started on the YouTube channel, and he talked about Victor Wembanyama could be the best player by 2028 when Olympic basketball is up and running once again, this time going to be in Los Angeles. Victor Wembanyama is an absolute unicorn. He's an absolute behemoth of a man. You can really mark him down almost as one of the top three guys to win Defensive Player of the Year this year. And it's going to definitely be interesting to see when you have a guy on the floor who's almost a secondary coach in Chris Paul. How is he going to set Victor Wembanyama up to be successful in certain areas of the game? This is a guy that can do absolutely everything on the floor, whether that be blocking shots, passing the ball, rebounding, getting his own bucket as well. There's not too many guys in the league that can stop him when he is on his game. And it's only scary that this is only his second year in the NBA. Not saying San Antonio is going to be a team this season that's going to really be vying for playoff positioning via the play-in. I still think they have a couple more years to go, but it seems that the San Antonio Spurs organization, as well as the NBA, is in very good hands when it comes to the next superstar in Victor Wembanyama, another guy that I think the NBA is going to have to take into consideration of being the face of the NBA. And that's really going to be interesting because we are seeing a changing of the guard. Normally, when it came to who's the face of the NBA, it was always an individual that was born in the States. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry. We've really not had a guy from the international game step in and become the face of basketball in quite some time. You are seeing it more now with guys like Luka Doncic, as well as Giannis Antetokounmpo, Nikola Jokic as well. I think Victor Wembanyama is now a guy that we have to put into the mix, especially once we get to the 2028 season, if not earlier, of one of the guys that is going to certainly be one of the faces of the NBA right behind Anthony Edwards. The last guy, and this is not because I'm an Orlando Magic fan. This is not because we do things here at the station with the Orlando Magic. I really feel like this guy is being underrated in a way, and it's starting to become head-scratching to me. Paolo Banchero. I really feel like Paolo Banchero, this is going to be a year for him where he is just going to have to show that he can do it again. I think there were many individuals, many pundits, many NBA heads that said, you know what? He had a good year. We didn't expect this from the Orlando Magic. I think all eyes are going to be on him in terms of, can he do it again? But let me tell you something. The hype is certainly all there for one Paolo Banchero. Here's the thing. In his first playoff series as a member of the Orlando Magic, he led the team averaging almost 27 points a game to go along with about 9 rebounds as well as 4 assists. I believe that he led his team in all statistical categories when it came to the NBA playoffs this past season. And Sports Illustrated, if this doesn't get you hyped enough, honestly came out with an article saying that this is a guy that is on a track to make the NBA Hall of Fame. Let me read this excerpt for you. It says, Paolo Banchero, in just 2 years into his professional career, although he certainly looks like a future Hall of Famer to this point, the number 1 overall pick followed up his rookie year campaign with an all-star nod and a trip to the playoffs in his sophomore season. Once again projected to be the centerpiece of the Orlando Magic offense, Banchero already has offensive weaknesses and he only has few offensive weaknesses and is extremely skilled and mobile for his 6'10", 250-pound frame. Expect another all-star season and a step closer to reaching the Hall of Fame one day. He was the youngest player in NBA history to lead his team in points, rebounds, and assists in the regular season at just the tender age of 21 years old. I understand the Orlando Magic aren't a team that gets a lot of national media games. It's really a region thing, or you have to just be a diehard fan of the Orlando Magic. But this is certainly going to be a team that you cannot sleep on this year, especially when you have a guy like Coach Jamal Mosley saying that, hey, this guy wants to impact winning. We heard Jamal Mosley last year say that this is a guy that can score like Carmelo Anthony. He can pass like LeBron James. And those are two guys that are going to be Hall of Famers in their own right. And if you have an NBA head coach who's been around for a long time saying that he sees those attributes and a guy that wants to contribute to winning, such as Paolo Banchero, I'm telling you right now, this is certainly going to be a guy that you do not want to sleep on. In fact, you're going to want to turn on your TVs, maybe stay on your social media channels just a little while longer, because there may be a few Paolo Banchero highlights that jump off of the screen time and time again this season. Those are the 3 guys that I am excited about, 25 years and younger, that are looking to set the league ablaze and setting things up for the future of the NBA. I'm telling you guys, we are in good hands with the young crop of stars that we have coming into the league and have already had a few years in the league. That's just my opinion. We would love to hear yours right in the comments section. Make sure to like and subscribe as well to Open Gym. But when we come back, hey, the Memphis Grizzlies were a team that they were amongst the top teams in the Western Conference just a couple of seasons ago. A lot of trouble has happened with the Grizzlies since then. However, can they make it back to the top in a deep Western Conference this year? We'll talk all that and more right here on Open Gym. The Memphis Grizzlies were amongst the Titans of the Western Conference just a couple of seasons ago. Injuries as well as other factors have played into that. They are now looking to get back to their rightful place amongst the top with the behemoths of the NBA and in particular the Western Conference. Can they do so? Let's find out with our next guest. He is Rob Fisher. He is the sideline reporter as well as pregame and postgame host. Just to get things started here, how would you grade the Grizzlies off season this summer, going into this year?
Well, it's a little weird to grade the offseason because they didn't really do much.
Right.
They had the ninth pick in the draft, and they addressed a big, huge need that they had, which was a big, huge guy. And
Right.
they got Zach Edey with that ninth pick. So I think that was a very successful move. The only other thing they did really was bring back Luke Kennard. But when I talk to people about what the Grizzlies did this offseason, I think it's more about what happened last season.
Okay.
You mentioned what a disaster it was last year with the injuries the Grizzlies had and the number of lineups and the number of players that they used. But if there was any positive that came out of last year, it was you found a guy in Vince Williams who's going to be an integral part of your bench. You found a guy in G.G. Jackson who was able to play last year. He's going to be a big part of your bench. Now, both of those guys are injured right now to start the season, but they should be back pretty soon, and they're going to be big parts of the team. They found a guy in Scottie Pippen Jr. last year who just got signed to a conventional contract off of his two-way contract. So they found him last year. So I think the Grizzlies offseason really goes back to what they found last year. And those guys are additions. And really, Marcus Smart, who was an addition last year, didn't play, a lot, only played 20 games last year. So he's kind of a new addition to this team. So I think it's I understand why people graded the Grizzlies offseason very poorly, just because they didn't do a lot. But I think that their offseason, if you extend it back to last year, I think it was a very successful offseason for the Grizzlies.
Absolutely. And one of those additions, you just named it, and big Zach Edey. I mean, my goodness. I mean, you're able to see him every day. That is just a giant of a man. But he has looked really good during the preseason and the opportunities in which we have been able to see him. What have been your early thoughts of the Grizzlies' new big man?
I think he's been exactly what you wanted him to be. Just a big man who you can run the offense around, who can be used in pick and rolls, who can be used for offensive rebounds, who can be used to post up. I mean, he can be used in so many ways. He affects the game without putting up numbers. And then when he puts up numbers, they can be massive. Like against Indiana the other night, had his best game as a Grizzly, 23 points and 9 rebounds, 10 of 15 from the field. And they had a concerted effort to really force feed him the ball and get him going offensively. And I think we were able to see what he's capable of offensively. I don't think you ask for those type of numbers from Zach Edey every night, but he's very capable of getting those numbers on any given night. And I think what you expect from him is what he's been given, double-digit points, close to double-digit rebounds, and just being a force in the paint. And so far, he's been everything as advertised.
Absolutely. Rob Fisher, our guest. He is the sideline reporter as well as pre- and post-game host for your Memphis Grizzlies. Make sure to follow him on X at the Fish Nation. I mean, this guy had the absolute league in the palm of his hands in Ja Morant. I understand that there's been a lot of things that have surrounded his name the last couple of years. You don't need to really get into that. However, with you talking to him, the media talking to him, just his overall makeup coming into this year, does it seem like he's just ready to put all that past him and just focus on the Memphis Grizzlies and their success on the court?
I think so. And I think his everything he has said and everything he's talked about is about, his time away and the injury last year and the suspension last year, and just having a chance to kind of sit back and look at, what he is capable of, what he can do, and what has derailed him at this point. And I think he's very humbled about it. I think there's no one on this team that's ready to play more than Ja Morant. I think Ja Morant is better, like a lot of players are better when they have a chip on their shoulder.
Right.
And I think Ja Morant's got a big chip on his shoulder because a lot of the talk of the great players in the league does not seem to involve Ja Morant. People have seemed to have forgotten about Ja Morant because he feels like he's been away for such a long time, only played 9 games last year. So I think there's kind of a remind me aspect to Ja Morant this year.
Right.
He was asked about it last week, whether he wants to come out and prove the doubters wrong and things like that. And he said the right things. He said no. All he wants to do is win basketball games and compete for a championship, and that's all that matters to him. And while I do agree with that, I disagree a little bit because Ja Morant's very aware of everything that is said about him.
Right.
And he'll use it as a chip. And I think Ja's going to quickly remind people what he can do. And for those who have forgotten what Ja Morant can do, just Google Ja Morant. Google him and just Google Ja Morant highlights and watch a highlight package of this guy. He is spectacular and does something every single night that just wows you. It's incredible to watch him play. I can't wait to see him back out on the floor. And, he's the head of the snake for this team. And as long as he's on the floor, this team's got a good chance to win.
Absolutely. And when you also talk about a guy that just wows you, a guy that wowed me last year was G.G. Jackson. And with all the injuries that the Memphis Grizzlies had, it wasn't like they could, just kind of forfeit basketball games. They still had to go out there and play. And G.G. Jackson was one of those guys that always popped out on the screen to me. And I'm just wondering, with guys getting healthy and the regular lineup going to be coming back this season, what type of a role do you see G.G. Jackson having with the team this season?
An important one. It's going to be the guy who's going to come off the bench and be a scorer for you and be an athletic wing for you. It's really one of the interesting questions about the Grizzlies this year because G.G. Jackson's numbers are going to go down.
Right.
He's not going to have the number of minutes. He's not going to have the number of shots that he got. So the question is, how can he improve on last season while his production will go down?
Right.
And it's got to be a lot of defensively. He's got to improve, and he's got to improve of when to take the shots, when to create for others, just fitting into the offense, and just taking that next level of playing a role, more of a role than what he had played last year, where it was pretty much wide open and he was a focal point on most nights. So. That's a big question, and I don't know. I expect GG to he's mature beyond his years.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's only 19 years old.
Right.
But we saw it last year, so I think he's going to grasp it, and I think he'll take off with it. I'm looking forward to it. He's out right now. He'll probably be back in December.
Okay.
I know he's itching to play, and because he wants to get back in this new role and see how he can contribute to the team. But I'm looking forward to it. I think he's going to be a big part of this team and a big part of the Grizzlies bench and a big part of the depth of this team, which I think is one of the reasons why I believe the Grizzlies will contend this season is because of how deep they are.
Rob Fisher, our guest, the pre-game and post-game host, as well as sideline reporter for the Memphis Grizzlies. Make sure to follow him on X at the Fish Nation. How important, in your opinion, is Marcus Smart going to be to the team this year?
I think pretty important. This team's identity has been defense. And when you got Jaren Jackson Jr. and Marcus Smart out there on the floor, two guys who were defensive players of the year,
right.
You should be really good on that side of the ball.
Right.
And I'm excited to see how Marcus Smart fits in because even last year when he played, Ja wasn't playing, or Desmond Bane wasn't playing, or Jaren wasn't playing, and then Mark got hurt, and so there was never a chance to really see what this lineup can do together. And I think that's the exciting part. As I said before, it kind of feels like Marcus Smart's a new pickup to this team because we haven't really seen him.
Right.
So I think to see him on the floor with Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., he's a guy that can pick his spots offensively, but really his calling cards on the defensive end. And that's where he's going to be needed. And that's where they're going to want him to flourish. And if he can, this offense should be really good. I mean, this starting five should be really good because you have offensive production in Ja, in Desmond, in Jaren. Edey can give it to you a little bit if you need it from him. And then you have Marcus Smart and Jaren Jackson Jr. anchoring the defense with Zach Edey as that big. So I think you're very balanced both offensively and defensively with your starting five. And Marcus Smart's a big part of that. And I'm excited to see what he's going to do with this team because, like I said, we never really got a chance to see it last year.
Jaren Jackson Jr. is a wonderful talent every time that he is on the floor. I mean, he's done some incredible things against my Los Angeles Lakers every time that he shows up in town, or the Lakers go down there to Memphis. Just in terms of next steps, though, for a guy like Jaren Jackson Jr., what would you like to see from him on the floor this season when you're there commentating about the Memphis Grizzlies?
I'd like to see Jaren get back to the defensive numbers that we saw a couple of years ago when he was Defensive Player of the Year. And I'm not saying he has to duplicate those numbers, but what happened last year was Jaren was such an important piece because everybody was out of the lineup, and Jaren was really the only healthy one all season, that Jaren played out of position a lot of times because he had to help so much defensively, because he had to be a focal point offensively. He never could just settle into a position.
Right.
So he was pretty much out of position a lot and scrambling a lot more. And now this year with the lineup set with Zach Edey, and you know what he's going to bring, with Jaren being more out on the four and being out at the four and being able to guard the athletic wings for opposition, I think we see Jaren get back to a defensive level that we saw a couple of years ago. Offensively, man, he took a big step last year when it was needed, and when he needed to. He's another guy where maybe his numbers go down a little bit offensively just because of the other options you have on the floor with him, but he's going to be very productive. And he's gotten better every single year, and I expect another step to be taken this year. I'm looking forward to that step on the defensive end, but it wouldn't surprise me if he takes a step offensively as well.
Absolutely. Final couple of moments with Rob Fisher. He is the sideline reporter as well as pre- and post-game host for your Memphis Grizzlies. Make sure to follow him on X at the Fish Nation. Final two questions for you, and thanks again for coming on the program and joining us here. I need to find this guy's jersey because I definitely want to don it. Yuki Kawamura. I mean, this guy has been an absolute viral sensation with his no-look passes. I mean, the dimes that he's dropping to guys like Zach Edey and others. Just talk about, his play style and what the team and yourself have thought of him. I understand that some people may have thought that there was going to be a battle between he and Scottie Pippen Jr. for who would be the backup point guard spot, but you alluded to it earlier in the interview about Scottie Pippen getting that contract from the Grizzlies, so he'll be the backup point guard. But Yuki has been a guy that has really become a fan favorite in NBA circles from what he's done so far in the preseason.
He's a guy that he's very infectious, and he's a guy that's not only a fan favorite, he's a team favorite, a coach favorite. I mean, everybody loves him because he's 5'8". He's 5'8".
Right.
And he plays so hard, and he plays in the paint, among the trees. He's not afraid to shoot. He gets over a handful of assists a night. I mean, the guy just knows how to play basketball, and being that size, you know that he knows how to play basketball, or he wouldn't be playing where he's at
Right.
He's fun to watch. Now, I don't know what his future holds. I don't know if he's going to be in the Grizzlies G League affiliate. The Grizzlies do, because of signing Scottie Pippen, they do have another two-way contract available.
Right.
Maybe Yuki could get one of those two-way contracts. I don't know. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I think this is a guy that's going to make money playing basketball, whether it's in the NBA, the G League, or overseas. I think he can make a lot of money because he's a fun guy to watch, and he's got great skill, and and everybody falls in love with him when they see him. And I know he's huge in Japan. He's got 630,000 Instagram followers.
Wow.
And he's only posted 10 times. So he's got a huge following because he's kind of like the Steph Curry of Japan. He's 5'8".
Right.
He's the type of guy that you look at and say, hey, I can do that, and I'm that size. I can be that player, much like we are here with Steph. So he's got a huge following, and it's fun to watch him. He's trying to learn English and doesn't speak a lot of English, but he's making his way right now, and he's impressed a lot of people in Memphis for sure.
Absolutely. Final question for you. You've been a part of the Memphis Grizzlies organization for a long, long time, and I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but I definitely do just want to ask you about it. Give me your favorite Grizzlies player of all time.
Oh, it's tough. I guess I would have two answers because my favorite player to ever deal with as a member of the broadcast team and being around the players, the guy that was the best to deal with has been Mike Conley. I mean, just a wonderful guy.
Absolutely.
Would talk after wins, talk after losses. He always was a stand-up guy. So I always love Mike Conley. But my favorite player is probably Zebo.
Yeah.
Zach Randolph was just, he put this team on his back so many times, and so many amazing moments at FedEx Forum, so many great playoff moments for Zach Randolph. And, he was the best player that this team had during that core four run. And he's just a big, lovable guy too. So I'd probably say Zebo is my favorite player.
Absolutely. I can't tell you why. I was thinking about probably one of my favorite Grizzlies players of all time. I understand. I don't believe he was able to play for a long time in Memphis, but he was with the Vancouver organization. I can't tell you why I like Big Country so much. I love Big Country because he used to kill Shaq all the time. Had an ugly jump shot, but, Shaq's on the floor. Shaq, gave like a great story where he says, at halftime, it's, I have 12 points and 6 rebounds, and all of a sudden here comes Big Country. He has got 22 points at the half. So I loved Big Country and watching his game as well. That has been Rob Fisher. He is the sideline reporter as well as the pre- and post-game host for your Memphis Grizzlies. Definitely going to be an exciting season, and definitely interested to see, can this team make it back atop of the Western Conference and be that scary team that we saw just a couple of years ago. And we thank Rob so much for his time. Rob, thank you so much again, and hopefully we can do this sometime down the road during the regular season.
Absolutely. Anytime. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. The Charlotte Hornets, looking to be a team that can get into the NBA playoffs in the Eastern Conference. However, they will have their work cut out for them. It is a deep Eastern Conference this season. However, we do want to get the latest on the organization, and with that, we go to Steve Reed of the Associated Press. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Steve Reed AP. Does incredible things with the Charlotte Hornets, and he's so gracious to give us a couple moments of his time. Mr. Reed, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Pretty good. And thanks again for giving us a couple moments of your time. One of the players in which I wanted to start this thing off with is, of course, the franchise guy in LaMelo Ball. When he's on the floor, he's going to give you highlight real material time and time again. He is absolutely a dynamic player to watch when he's on the floor. In fact, ESPN came out with a little bit of a list where they talked about some of the top players under the age of 25 who they think can maybe set the league on fire this season and the seasons to come. And, of course, LaMelo Ball was placed on that list. But we did see this past season, his year get derailed by injuries. However, I just wanted to know from you, how important is it going to be for LaMelo and this team to see him play a full year or close to a full year? And do you think he can get back to his all-star level of play?
Well, that's a big question. I mean, this Hornets team has been plagued by injuries over the last 2 years, really, and it's been a big reason why they haven't been able to make the playoffs. And so, LaMelo is a guy who is a difference maker, and you got to have your difference makers on the floor, especially if you're a small market team, like the Hornets. And so it comes down to, hey, can the Hornets keep guys healthy? Cody Martin, Mark Williams.
Right.
They have been just rattled by injuries over the last couple of years. And the feeling here is if they can just stay healthy, right? If they can just stay healthy, then they got a chance to be a playoff team. Now, are we talking, NBA Finals? No, they're not at that level. But we're talking a playoff team, and they have the longest streak in the NBA for not being in the playoffs.
Right.
I mean, it is a dubious streak, and it's something they want to break. I think they have the talent, but there's that big, big, big asterisk that says they got to stay healthy, and they haven't been able to stay healthy. They certainly weren't under their 2 years under Steve Clifford. Now they got a new head coach in Charles Lee.
Absolutely. And speaking of Charles Lee and the new head coach of the Charlotte Hornets, what have you thought of him early on, just in his implementation of the offense, how the guys are gravitating to him? What has just been the thought since he's been hired and now being able to put in his culture and his offense to this Hornets squad? Well, what have been your thoughts early on?
Yeah, I think the guys have really gravitated towards him. He's a young coach. He's won 2 NBA championships, so he comes with, a resume. He comes with some clout. And I think that resonates with the younger players. He can relate to them. The one thing he is really stressing this year is defense. It's been a point of emphasis from the moment everybody got to, off-season workouts. From the moment training camp started, it has been the emphasis is defense. and they've not been very good at defense. And part of that has been injuries. You don't have your shot blocker Mark Williams last year for most of the year. They've never had a strong rim protector before that. So I think there's reasons why they haven't been good defensively. But defensively now they've got some pieces that can help. Josh Green coming in, and Cody Martin, if he can come back and healthy. Those are two good on-ball defenders. So that's going to help. And I think the thing he is emphasizing, Charles Lee, is play hard every night. And
right.
that's what the Hornets have to do to have any chance.
Absolutely. Steve Reed, our guest. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Steve Reed AP. He is the sports writer for the Associated Press, covering teams such as the Carolina Panthers and, of course, your Charlotte Hornets. Brandon Miller, I got to tell you, Mr. Reed, I love his game. We just saw an incredible highlight dunk that he did on Miles Turner that I feel like that should be on every poster, on every kid's wall in America once they come out with that poster. He had a great first year. Now he's coming into year two. You watching that team and being so close with that team, in terms of next steps, what would you like to see from Brandon Miller as a player?
Well, I think just be more aggressive, taking more control of the game, being the guy. The scoring is going to come from him and LaMelo and Miles Bridges. Those are going to be your three scorers in Charlotte.
Right.
So I think, him just taking that next step as far as leadership. He's a really good shooter. I don't think they got any concerns about that. And I think, one thing is they had to, really talk to him last year about was, listen, go shoot the ball. I mean, don't be shy. Go shoot the ball. We want you shooting the basketball.
Right.
And so, that it's kind of that mentality of, listen, you're the guy. Now go do it, right?
Right.
And sometimes guys come in as rookies and they're they want to fit in, I guess,
right.
and be a part of the offense rather than be the offense. But he's got to come in and help be the offense.
Right. And one of the biggest questions I've had when it comes to this Hornets team is just the future of Miles Bridges. I mean, it seems like an insane 1-2 combination when LaMelo Ball and Miles are on the floor, and anytime they get in the open court, I mean, watch out. You may see something put on social media because they're going to do something so spectacular on the floor. But he is going to be, a free agent soon here. What's the future for Miles Bridges with the Hornets?
Well, we'll find out. I think it's a year-to-year deal with him. I think, some of the stuff, the off-the-court stuff, has caused, the front office, and rightfully so, to be concerned about, giving him a long-term contract. But Miles really wants to be in Charlotte. He likes
right.
Charlotte. He is, that's why he came back this year. So it's kind of a year-to-year basis. And I think this is a guy who keeps improving on the floor as a player. And, there's a high ceiling with him. And so, he gels well with Melo, as you said, and you've seen the highlight dunks from those two.
Right.
It is a good combination. So I think, between those three guys, LaMelo and Brandon and Miles, you got a 1-2-3 punch that's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's not the best in the NBA, but it's a pretty good competitive group. Now you got to fill in those pieces around him. And that's what they're slowly, trying to work towards doing. Tijan Salon is their first round draft pick, and he's got some potential there as well. So you've got a few more, veteran pieces coming off the bench. You got Vasa Micic, Seth Curry, Cody Martin, as I mentioned before. Trey Mann will be coming off the bench. So, those are guys that have now seen NBA action. Grant Williams is another, guys who have some experience, some playoff experience too with those guys. And so that's a big help. Just having those guys in the locker room, I think, is a huge, huge help.
Absolutely. Final couple of moments with Steve Reed of the Associated Press. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Steve Reed AP. Does incredible work with the Charlotte Hornets. You named a few guys in which I'm excited to see for this Hornets team, especially Mann. He's going to be one of those guys in which I'm going to love seeing for this Charlotte Hornets team this season. But is there anybody that we haven't talked about? I understand we've talked about the 1-2-3 punch, but is there a guy that maybe not a lot of individuals are looking at or maybe underrating a bit on this Hornets team that you're excited to see this season?
Well, I think, the guy that has to take a big step in my mind for them to be successful is Nick Richards. And,
Yeah.
I think he did last year. He got a lot of playing time. He's your backup center behind Mark Williams. But as you said, Mark Williams has been injury, riddled here.
Yeah.
But if Nick can get better, and I think he will, I think he's gotten better, that's a huge piece. If you got 2 7-footers who can both play, and, if he can get better on the offensive end, that's a huge step for them. I think his growth, what the new coaching staff can maybe bring to him and help him develop as a player, I think that's big. And I think that's key because you got to have big men in this league who can defend, who can also score. And I think they're both of their big men, their centers can defend. I think scoring, is not, really a strong part. Mark Williams is going to score a lot, but it's going to be, dunks and around the rim and, 2 feet, that sort of thing feeds off, from LaMelo thing. But making their own baskets, making their own shots, they don't really have that type of a center, so to speak, that they can go to in those situations. That's an area I think that they've got to address at some point, moving forward if they can get a big time center.
Absolutely. And speaking of Nick Richards, I mean, I loved his game when we saw bits and pieces of him last season. And, me being a Los Angeles Lakers fan and hearing Nick Richards being a possible guy that they're looking at, I mean, I was on my hands and knees playing, please let us get an opportunity with Nick Richards. But I do believe that this is going to be a guy that the Charlotte Hornets do value, and they're not going to look to move him. Just how, great of a player has he been since getting to Charlotte?
Yeah, I mean, he's been good. But, I think, if he can take that next step, and challenge Mark for that start job, and just really, become a better overall player, better offensive player. I think that'll help him leaps and bounds.
Absolutely. Before we let you go, just a couple more questions for you. In your opinion, what would you consider as a strong year for the Charlotte Hornets? I understand what we said, possibly making the playoffs, and probably that would be via the play-in. However, even if they don't make the playoffs and still have a strong year, what do you feel is going to go into that where there can be hope for the future for Hornets fans?
Well, I think this is a year they've got to break through. They've got to break through, and that's all you're looking to do right now is get to that first playoff series. Get to a playoff series, something they haven't done in the last 8 years. And it's, taking that next step. Now you got a new coaching staff. This is going to be a process. All right. This is not going to be, hey, look who showed up at the, the Eastern Conference Championship game. No, this isn't that type of a team. But if you can continue to take big steps, or I should say take little steps and continue to build the program and then get some big time players in here. Teams in today's NBA in free agency, I think players should want to come to Charlotte. It's great. Not only is it a great place to live, it's a up and coming city. It's still it's a thriving city. And in today's NBA, you have those big market teams, but it's been kind of equalized by TV and everything else. You're going to get seen, right? It's not like it used to be, right? So Charlotte should be a good destination, and it hasn't been. Honestly, I mean, they have not gotten the free agents, right? They got Gordon Hayward, but they haven't gotten the free agents through the years that they need to attract, and that has to change. And I think the only way you change that is winning basketball. So if you can win games, you start becoming a winner. Guess what? Guys are going to want to come here and play, and you're going to add some of those better pieces.
Absolutely. Just a final couple more before we let you go. He is Steve Reed of the Associated Press covering your Charlotte Hornets. I don't want to place everything at Grant Williams' feet. I do look at this team, however, they do have some savvy vets that you do definitely want to have on a team, and it's really become a lost art when it comes to, teaching the young guys, showing them the way. Is Grant Williams the guy that needs to be the veteran leader for this team? You also have Seth Curry there, who's been around the league for a while as well. Who is Charles Lee, in your opinion, going to be looking to be that veteran leader for such a young group?
Yeah, I think, it comes down to, Grant Williams, Taj Gibson, who's kind of a little deeper on the bench, but he can come off and play. He's played a lot of NBA. Seth Curry is another one, and Josh Green, who will be starting right now as far as is when they open the season, looks like he is that fifth starter. So, those are the guys that you looked at, when you're in those grind games, when you're on the road playing a back-to-back, or, those are the guys you look for for the leadership, and they need that. They need those leadership, those veteran guys. And I think, Seth Curry, is one of those guys. Grant Williams is another one of those guys. Both Charlotte kids, by the way.
Right.
And just, so those are the type of players that you look to, to get you through those tough nights, and to be out there playing hard every night. And so, those are the leadership guys that you need.
Last one before we let you go. I just finished watching an interview with Larry Johnson, and I believe he may be the consensus pick for like a favorite Hornet of all time. But you've been around the Hornets organization for a long time. Just wanted to get your opinion. Who has been your favorite Hornet of all time?
Well, I think it's Kemba Walker. I mean, he's the all-time,
right,
leading scorer of the franchise. He was a great ambassador for the city. And Kemba came to play every night. He played through knee injuries. And this guy was as tough as nails. He showed it at UConn, and then he showed it here, in Charlotte, and the guy would make some incredible shots. And of course, LaMelo just is fun to watch.
Yeah.
He's really fun to watch. And Larry was before I was covering, but he was incredible. And, you had Alonzo Mourning and Muggsy Bogues.
Yeah.
But, so there's been some good names, but this is one thing that too is this city will get behind this team once it's a winner. I mean, listen, back in the Alonzo days and Larry Johnson and Muggsy,
right,
this was the team that set the pace in terms of attendance. It was sold out every night,
right?
Every night, back when they used to play at the Charlotte Coliseum.
Right.
So this is a city that will get behind this team if it ever wins games. And by the way, that goes for the NFL team across the street too.
Absolutely, absolutely. He is Steve Reed. He has been our guest talking all things Charlotte Hornets with us. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Steve Reed AP of the Associated Press. He is their sports writer covering all things Charlotte Hornets as well as the Carolina Panthers. Mr. Reed, thank you so much once again, and hopefully we can do this once again when the regular season tips off.
Absolutely. Just give me a call.
Absolutely. What would be more important to you if you were a player in the NBA and probably a guy that's looking to be a future Hall of Famer? An Olympic gold medal or an NBA championship? When asked by the media, Victor Wembanyama of the San Antonio Spurs says that winning a gold medal would be more special to him than winning an NBA championship, saying, quote, an Olympic gold medal would mean the most right now because you can win way less in a career. It's very much more rare. And I've been wrestling with this one ever since I read the quote, because it seems that in the NBA, everything is judged and based off of the accolades in which you do in the NBA, how many championships you win. It seems that anytime that we're looking at an individual that's going to be placed in the GOAT conversation, such as guys like Kobe Bryant or even that of LeBron James, when we compare him to Michael Jordan, we're always looking at their NBA accolades. We rarely put in the fact that they've won a couple of gold medals to their credit. When you look at Michael Jordan, he's won 6 rings. Kobe has 5, LeBron James with 4. And we always look at Michael Jordan being one of the ultimate winners in NBA history with those 6 championship rings, winning back-to-back-to-back championships twice in a 10-year span. But when you do look at the Olympics and winning a gold medal, I think Victor Wembanyama does have a point here, because it is a rarity to win an Olympic gold medal. Not every year are you able to do that. You can't all of a sudden now just make trades and big roster moves. This is about a country. And for a lot of these guys who are of European descent or coming from across the water to play in the NBA, playing for their country means a lot to them. If you listen to each and every last one of them, whether it be Luka Doncic playing for his home country or Nikola Jokic playing for his, you even have Victor Wembanyama, and you saw just the emotion on his face playing in France, playing with his fellow Frenchmen, looking to win that gold medal. It seems to mean a lot to them. Then maybe sometimes it does to USA players. There have been a few times in which guys from Team USA have declined to go play with the red, white, and blue due to a myriad of reasons. And the USA had a lull there. And you remember 2004 when they play in Greece. They ultimately just win bronze that year because they really didn't have the team in which to compete with certain individuals from countries such as Argentina. They even got upset by Carlos Arroyo in Puerto Rico, if you remember that game as well during the Olympics in Athens. But I think what the USA also learned was you can't just take a group of all-stars, put them together, and expect them to go and win a gold medal. There has to be a little bit more to that formula, a bit more of a method to the madness before you just go out there and win yourself a gold medal. And we've seen in recent history now that Team USA really seems to have figured out the secret formula. It's still going to be interesting to see what they do in 2028. But back to Victor Wembanyama. What is more important if you are an NBA player? Well, to me, it would certainly be an NBA championship because I've never really thought of the opportunity of playing overseas or playing in the Olympics if I were to be an NBA player. Now, this is a certain thing that I always have to remind myself. It's called the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. It's not just the NBA Hall of Fame. And when you look at certain individuals like Carmelo Anthony, he says when it comes to the game of basketball, I've won a few gold medals to my credit. I may not have an NBA championship, but he does point to those gold medals, and he says that that is a thing that should be looked at when you look at his resume and ask whether or not he should be a first ballot Hall of Famer, which I do believe that Carmelo Anthony should be, even though he doesn't have an NBA championship to his credit. But it's always going to be different for everyone. For Kobe Bryant, he said that it meant so much to him to be able to compete for his country, to don those colors, and to go out and play the best players in the world. Another great thing about the Olympics is we have seen now the European game really transition to the States, where we're really seeing more now of a European style of action. It's a beautiful game of basketball. It may not be the type of basketball that many were accustomed to in the 80s, the 90s, and the early 2000s, but it's been a changing of the guard. It's been a changing of the times. But when it comes to Olympic gold medals and winning those gold medals, you'll see superstar players that may not be stars in the NBA, but they are stars in their own countries and in their own rights year after year after year after year. Try to get into a position to where they can take their country to the Olympics when they play in the FIBA World Games or win a gold medal just outright. We saw those great battles with Pau Gasol and Marc Gasol when they would go up with Team USA. It seemed to them that having their country across their chest meant more to them. They felt like they were the best country in the world. We've also seen that with guys such as the Argentinians. When you had Luis Scola, you also had Manu Ginobili on that team. Those guys who may have not had much success in the NBA seem to really play with a little bit more hunger when it is their entire country that's placed on their back. The NBA, it's almost like you put a city on your back, or you're just putting your entire resume, your entire career on your back, and sometimes you're playing for that. So I can see it a few ways from Victor Wembanyama's perspective, where not only is he putting his country on his back, but it's also an opportunity to bring pride to his country by winning a gold medal, because not everyone is promised an NBA championship in their career. Heck, not everyone's promised an Olympic gold medal in their career. But just talking from me, the NBA finals and NBA championships have always been just the crowning moment of someone's career. And we always talk about that time and time and time and time again. When you want to ask who's the great player, what seems to always be one of the first conversations? How many NBA championships did such a player win, and where does that put him on the pantheon of great players of all time? So give me the NBA championship above the Olympic gold medal. But again, just my thoughts. And as always, we'd love to hear yours. That's going to do it for us here on Open Gym. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We have a lot of great things coming up throughout the regular season. The NBA season tips off in just a few days. Come Tuesday, we will be tipping off the NBA regular season, and we'll be right here talking all about it with you.